Marlene Lemus, the CEO of Paid Prevention, and you are once again watching an episode of our podcast, Disrupting the Dominoes. And when we say that, we're disrupting the dominoes of violence. We have a very special guest today. I'm super excited. Really, for me, a pioneer in the movement, an inspiration in the movement for me. So it's a very exciting podcast for me to engage in with our guest, writer, actor, author, producer, filmmaker. I mean, it's just incredible, the resume that our guest puts together, featured on Dateline, NBC, in the Huffington Post as a blogger, NPR. I mean, I could go on and on and on about the impact and the mediums that our guest has been able to impact and impart ESD and violence prevention education on. And I'm just so really happy. The author and producer of Beauty Bites Beast, the book and the documentary, the author of Safety Godmothers, which I think is the greatest name, and the one woman show. I've got to mention that, her one woman show of Now That She's Gone. I'm just super excited to have our next guest, Ellensnortland. Welcome.
Thank you. What a welcome. And I want you to know that you are my dream come true. You are, to me, my hero. And when I started talking about ending violence against women, there wasn't a lot of buy-in to that. And I stand on the shoulders of many great women myself. And one of my gifts in life is that I will not stop, and I have a big mouth, and I will keep talking and keep jangling at the doors and pounding until I get let in. So that is my gift to the movement. And because we don't need any more, well, maybe we do, but my gift isn't necessarily my skills as a martial artist or anything like that, but I will fight for all of our right to spread what we have, which I consider to be a vaccine against violence. So
absolutely. Well, please don't think that just because you are not a martial artist or anything like that, that you are having an incredible impact. And many of the people in the movement, you know, we are constantly going to you. We're constantly reading an article that you've wrote and adding it into our presentations. We're constantly quoting you. I mean, this is the impact you've had on our movement. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome. I couldn't not do it, but there you go.
So please, could you share, you know, your path? How did you get on this path to trying to eliminate violence?
Well, I had been a feminist since I was 3 years old. So that was just kind of a no-brainer. However, the impact of violence occurred because I was coming home at midnight in Los Angeles, 3 blocks east of MacArthur Park, which in many ways is like Beirut during the war. I mean, it's just a really scary neighborhood, especially for white people. We were the only white people really within miles of that neighborhood. And that's a whole nother story how I got to be there. But my husband and I at the time, he's no longer my husband. We took 2 cars like a lot of couples do in Los Angeles because it's, you know, it's so big. And we met at a restaurant and then we drove home in separate cars. And he comes around to my driver's window and says, "Stay in the car. Somebody's broken into the house." It's straight up midnight in this really dicey neighborhood. And I froze, which is, I learned later what people do. And he went into the house, which is pitch black at the time. And then I shook myself out of my damsel in distress freeze. And I went, what kind of feminist wife am I to let my sweet husband go into a pitch black house at midnight? And so I got out of the car, and sure enough, I saw that somebody had broken in and as I crossed the threshold, a man in a ski mask is walking up the stairs holding a knife and is ready to plunge it into me. And I froze. And then I did the only thing I knew to do, which was I screamed so loudly, the man dropped his knife, grabbed his ears, and ran like hell.
So perfect example of using your voice, right?
And, I mean, I am a privileged middle-class white woman who, I was raised to think that somebody would always be there to save me, or men wouldn't dare try to hurt a woman. And it's like, yeah, not so much. I mean, here I am privileged, I'm well-read, I'm athletic, I have a law degree, I am very clever about a lot of different things. I'm a voracious reader. And after the adrenaline and cortisol dump happened, my husband, who had been in a completely different part of the house, didn't know if he was going to find me dead or alive. And I was very much alive. And after he says, I'm giving you a self-defense class for your upcoming birthday. And at the time I was a segment producer for a very large talk show by the same company that did Oprah. And I went into work the next day, and we had about 40 people on staff, and I went to every single person on staff and I said, do you know what to do if violence happens to you somehow? Every woman said, oh God, no. I can't even believe you screamed. Because a fundamental fear of a lot of people is that they wouldn't be able to open their mouth. And then 100% of the men said, oh yeah, and clearly some of them were lying, because it's like, there's this expectation that men know what to do. It's like, no, they don't. But, they're given social permission to, or actually a requirement that they know how, which is like, okay. So being the voracious reader that I am, I just started seeing if I could unravel what's going on with this helplessness of women and this macho thing of men. Somebody explain this to me. And I couldn't find a book. The only thing I found were pretty low production value how-to books for women's self-defense. And I just searched and searched. I could not find a book to explain it to me. So Toni Morrison said, if there's a book you want to read and it doesn't exist, you must write it. So I went, okay, I like Toni Morrison, I'll do that. So that was the beginning of Beauty Bites Beast. And it was stranger violence. It wasn't familiar. And we all know that the most scary people are the ones we actually know, or at least have an acquaintanceship with. But it opened the whole door to me. And I said, you know what? I am not going to give up until a critical mass of women know that they're potentially dangerous creatures. So.
Yeah. During my lifetime of teaching martial arts, it was always one of the cool things it's going to sound weird that it was cool, but being able to empower young kids to know that they could defend themselves, that even, their one finger in someone's eye could do a whole lot of damage, even if they were 6, or, kicking somebody in the shin and then running could do a whole lot of good. So yeah, being able to empower people with the ability to take care of themselves, to create a safe force field around them. It's really, really important. Can you share a little bit more about what the premise of Beauty Bites Beast is, in case there are people who are watching our podcast who don't know? And I highly recommend it. And if you want to share where they could have access to it and watch it as well.
Okay, well, my website, beautybitesbeast.com, is a place to have access to the documentary. And it's currently on the Vimeo platform. And the book continues to be on Amazon. And what I did with Beauty Bites Beast, the book, is I said, okay, let's take a look at this. Let's break this down. What's going on that with all the other animals on the planet, not one female in any of the other species would say, you know what, I don't do this. The male in our family will handle the danger. It's like, it's absurd. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it were about lions, tigers, or bears, or even dogs or cats. It's just not an issue. It's not a gendered issue. And we have, as a society, decided it's a gendered issue, which is BS. Sorry, it is just, it's trash. It's propaganda. And it is designed to keep men superior. That's kind of the bottom line, which they're not. And yes, they have as a patriarchy, and this is not an individual fault of men. It's the structure of our culture that has male supremacy firmly in place. And, it's, I think, one of the most damaging things on the planet, and is the source of most global problems. I know that's a sweeping statement. So I break down science, religion, education, entertainment, how we report the news, all these different segments of society, and how that impacts women's view of themselves as being helpless, and men considering women to be helpless.
No, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I think that it's proven over and over again when young girls are not limited by these things, where there are parents, like in my case, that opened up the floodgates to let me do whatever I wanted to do. Well, I have to say, not my parents, my mom, because my dad, being the good Mexican man, that traditional Mexican man that he was, would have loved to have me just stay in pretty frilly dresses and, play piano or something. Although he was very happy to teach me boxing, so it was quite the contradiction. But yeah, I think we see it over and over again when young girls are taken out of that box. They do some pretty phenomenal things. And when young boys are not limited by the box that they're put in, they can also do some pretty incredible things. So just eliminating those boxes and those norms that unfortunately we are up against, I think can do a lot of good. So I do see what you're saying. It's not that crazy, Ellen. I do see it for sure.
Oh, and I don't think it's, you said this is going to sound crazy when you said it's so great to see a kid learning an eye strike is enough to give them that's joy. Makes my heart sing. Because one of the things I did with Impact Personal Safety is teach children's classes, and those were co-ed. And I saw little boys come in all confident about their bodies and doing phony kicks and, just being really free in their bodies. And the girls, not so much, although that has shifted. But
Yeah.
I'm happy to say. But I saw the boys watching the girls, and the girls were just as good as the boys.
Yeah.
And that is grassroots feminism right there. You don't have to mention empowerment. You don't have to mention feminism. You don't have to do anything except have the actual bodies in play be, the biggest testament to equality.
Yeah. I think, on a side note, I think, as we celebrate 50 years of Title IX, I think Title IX has had a huge impact on giving young girls opportunities and exposing them to opportunities that they would not have had Title IX not been passed. So yeah, happy 50 years.
Yay, yay, absolutely. I didn't get to do any contact sports. I was an incredible track person, and that was one of the only things we got to do at my high school, was to have the girls track team, but otherwise it was pretty much closed off to us. And the thing about you saying, doesn't it sound kind of crazy that I love teaching shin kicks and pokes? It's like all sports. I think one of the biggest surprises for a lot of women is that just how fun it is, and most of the sports I can think of had some kind of application in war. And so there's this mix of sports and martial arts in the broadest sense, not the traditional idea of martial arts. But I mean, the fastest runners had the advantage in wartime, the best swimmers, the best, so all the sports have their roots in what we have used to survive.
Right.
So yes, they're fun. Oh my goodness.
Again, Title IX has been a fantastic gift. Well earned, well deserved, but yeah.
And sadly not in play as much as they should be. I mean, our local congressman was infuriated when he went down to pick his girls up from soccer practice, and they were practicing in the dark. Meanwhile, the boys have these lit up football fields, and it's just like, he said, no. So he was instrumental in making sure that particular high school got lighting at night for the girls.
Right, for all the fields, right? Whoever's using fields, exactly. Yep. Right. So I have, my next question is, can you share your thoughts on where we are in the world in preventing violence, in your eyes, in your opinion? Where do you feel? Have we made some progress? Are we at a standstill? Are we ahead? In your kind of lifetime, in your life's work while you've been doing this, where do you see us now?
Well, ideas are powerful and ideas are contagious. And I think that the idea of a woman protecting herself has made huge strides. When I was a delegate to the United Nations World Conference on Women in 1995 in Beijing, and I was pretty much treated like a pariah for advocating women's self-defense. It was looked at as fringe. That must be a bunch of lesbian women, and it was just minimized and made wrong for not being ladylike. I mean, all the arguments that we've ever heard about women's self-defense. I mean, and I was not treated very nicely by other women or anybody that was at that conference. And then when I was at the United Nations in New York at the main campus of the UN, I took copies of my book and I stood up in the middle of a 400 person. It was not a fringe, but it was a specifically about women's health. So I went to that confab and I stood up, I raised my hand, I stood up and I said, are any of the boots on the ground service providers talking about basic self-defense? And I was looked at like I was nuts. People avoided me in the halls. It was brutal. And luckily I have very big ovaries. And I saw that as a validation that what I was talking about was primal.
Right.
So I've been able to recontextualize scorn into, oh, I must be doing something that's working. Thank goodness. So now contrast and compare. I'm getting around to answering your question. Contrast and compare my showing Beauty Bites Beast at the Commission on the Status of Women, oh my God, 3 years ago. It was standing room only. The documentary, I screened it. It was standing room only. It was met with a standing ovation. And I was at another meeting at that same conference, and somebody stood up and said, I think the only reason I was here was because I needed to see Beauty Bites Beast. Now I know that there is a lever I can use that will empower the women, and that was in Estonia. So, and then she didn't know I was in the audience. And so that is, wow, a huge difference between 1995 and 2017.
Well, thank you for that, because sometimes I feel like we're not making the progress that we should be making. So that energizes me to see that much change really in a short period of time. I do feel that there is this, it's baffling to me because I don't know life without martial arts and without self-defense. I really don't remember much before 5 years old. And that's when I started martial arts. So it really is like, does not compute. When people have this, this blockade against giving people a skill set to better defend themselves. And when I say the skill set, human safety skills of setting a boundary or using your voice or trusting your intuition, that human safety skill set, or physical skills, if that's what you're so inclined to increase your skill set on physical skills, why would anybody object to that or feel that there would be something wrong with that? It really is, for me, like Lost in Space, does not compute for me. But I do know that there is a lot of opposition to thinking that way.
Yeah, but the thing about ideas, oh my goodness. One of my favorite books is The Origin of Teepees by Johnny Hughes. Have you read it?
I've not.
Well, basically, and I'm just simplifying this way, way, way. I don't want to insult the author, but basically is ideas are truly contagious. Let's say somebody living in a tiny little hamlet in Norway, and the next hamlet is over a fjord and through terrible conditions, and you only visit maybe once a year, but then you go into their valley and you see that a woman is using a wheelbarrow, and you don't have wheelbarrows. You cannot unsee that wheelbarrow.
Right.
And the first thing you do is you go back to your hamlet and go, hey, wheels. And, so that's why I'm somewhat of a zealot about having people read my book or see my documentary, because you can't unsee that stuff. And I created Beauty Bites Beast to not feature any individuals per se, but to feature self-defense as kind of the protagonist, because you can't unsee, you can't not have your mindset messed with seeing Beauty Bites Beast.
Right.
So it's not a traditional movie. It's kind of quirky, and it reflects my personality, but it also, I took almost every argument I've ever heard and demonstrated how those arguments just don't hold water.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So as part of what pain prevention is doing, and what I feel is its strength, is developing these tools and assessments where we can gather real data and give real feedback to our clients and to the individual employees as we try to keep, corporations healthier and safer, organizations, institutions, really make culture change. So we have the individual employee assessment, but we also are in development of a tool that will be an organizational assessment on violence in the workplace and give us some indicators. So I don't think this has ever been done. So we're really excited about that. So how do you see, please share your thoughts on, empowerment self-defense is the foundation of pain prevention's programming. So I think, and that's where our programming comes from. How do you see that, in your opinion, reducing workplace violence?
Well, I think one of the profound themes that I hear from women who are having violence issues at the workplace is that they don't even know how to wrap their heads around it. They don't have the tools to even talk to people about it. And by bringing it up and putting it on the table rather than having it be a token HR seminar about, don't comment on her outfit, blah, 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 is to give people ideas. Here we go back to the ideas part, which is success stories, anecdotal about what one firm did. And, just because there are so few success stories and there are just a whole bunch of failure stories that seep into our consciousness. And a mindset needs to have how it worked and what somebody did in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what's so important. I would have never seen myself 2 years ago being responsible for training the macro responders in Oakland, the mobile assistance community responders of Oakland. They're an alternative approach to responding to low acuity calls in Oakland. If you would have told me 2 years ago, oh, you're going to be responsible for training responders, community responders, I would have said, what? No way. I'm so excited that PAVE is at the table, not only involved in the discussion, but actually administering training. So, but
Yay!
yes, it's super exciting. But that right there is on a daily basis. We shared a little bit before we started the podcast. In less than a month's time working, the responders, 3 teams of 2, have responded to nearly over 650 incidents. I mean, if we're not getting information from that, they're using de-escalation, situational awareness, on a daily basis, identifying cues from body language. This is a skill set that we're trying to impart to make people healthier and safer. It just, I think once we continue to get that type of data that it's working on a daily basis, I think it's going to be easier for us to go into a corporation who wants to change culture and say, okay, these skills are going to work.
Oh my God, I'm so proud of you. That just makes me so happy to hear, because really on the ground with real people in real situations and being able to not only do what you've done in Oakland, but to create a duplicable program that you can take to other cities. And it's I think the power of ideas is daring to dream. I mean, most people don't dare to even dream that they can impact something that huge. So thank you for being a dreamer, and thank you for being willing to be uncomfortable, and thank you for being brave and taking on that which sane people wouldn't take on.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It is exciting. Again, I never would have thought we would have had a seat at that table, but I'm very proud that we do. And it is something that we have now created an awesome template that's getting better every for the feedback we get from the responders. After this next group that we're training, we'll have more feedback. So that template is just going to get stronger and more inclusive of ideas and tools. So yeah, we are looking to, roll that out in other areas. And, if anybody's watching in your community, we would love to not only speak to community responders, but speak to the social workers that are going into homes, speak to, city and governmental nurses that are going to do wellness checks. That same skill set that we imparted to the responders in Oakland, we can give that to other people who are in the community doing the work.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're very excited about it.
That is so cool. That is so cool. When I was in Sao Paulo in Brazil, Beauty Bites Beast is in Portuguese, and we went to roll out that edition. Brazil had just, and you know what, it could have just been Sao Paulo, I'm not sure, had just created a female-driven office in all the police departments.
Mm.
And so they were the ones to go out and interface with a family that was having domestic problems.
Wow, that sounds great. That sounds like a great program, initiative.
Yeah, and I would love to see you uh, rolling out your template in Sao Paulo. I can hook you up.
Great. That'd be fantastic. We would love to talk about what we're doing and see if it's a fit.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, do you have an event or an occurrence that occurred to you or that you witnessed about violence in the workplace?
I've always been freelance. I just can't stand working in an office. I can't stand working with other people. No, I'm kidding. But I've been very project oriented, and so I really have been very lucky in terms of being my own boss for decades now. And so the only harassment I would get would be the nasty little headspace that I get into is like, oh, what am I doing? I can't do this. So nobody's ever bothered me in a workplace except in Hollywood.
Mm.
I had circumstances that were pretty ugly, but it wasn't workplace. It was the atmosphere of Hollywood, once in my own home, and getting fired as a director because I was not one of the boys. And it was a TV show called Totally Hidden Video. And I was a director, and I was so good at it. And the actors loved me, the crew loved me. And usually in Hollywood in the late 80s, if somebody was going to get you, it was going to be the crew members who didn't want to work for a woman. But they stopped putting me on the schedule, and I called my supervisor and I said, what's going on? He says, you better come in. So like, ugh. Oh, I wish I'd been carrying a tape recorder. But I go in, and he said, well, somebody upstairs, one of the suits doesn't like you. And I said, I don't know any of the suits. How could they not like me? He says, well, you haven't been getting any jiggle. And I said, what? What does that mean? He said, well, tits and ass. And I go, no, I really don't know what you mean. He said, well, during the downtime between hidden camera bits with the people on the street, all the other directors get video of women's tits and ass, and you don't do that. And I said, did I miss a memo? Do you tell the male directors to do that? And he said, no, we don't have to.
Wow.
And so I got fired because I wasn't doing things without women's consent. And that was, a form of economic harassment. I lost a job, but office harassment I never had. But I know the space.
Things like that happening, and people holding, the keys to the castle, and using it in inappropriate ways. We know that that's happening every day in companies and institutions and organizations. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is our last question. And two questions. One, I want to ask you, what are you currently working on? Is there anything that you'd like to share with our audience? Anything? Please let us know what's going on.
Well, what I love with all my heart is I currently teach creative writing online. And I am devoted to getting women's voices out into the world. So I encourage and empower women to write their truth and provide a safe space for that. And we have fun. And so I teach 3 classes a week. And that's, and then I write a weekly column for LA Downtown News and for the Pasadena Weekly. And those are my current platforms. And I'm writing a play that I'm not going to talk about yet because I'm superstitious, and you don't want to you don't want to jinx a play until it's written more than it is right now. But
right. Well, understood. Well, good luck with all that. You stay quite busy. Stay quite busy.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
So at the end of towards the end of our podcast, I asked the same question. It's a little corny, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you could have the audience of one person, if you could get one person to sit down with you, and you feel that they could impact and push our movement forward, who would that be?
Melinda Gates.
Okay. And why? What's your thought behind that?
Well, Melinda Gates has been open and eloquent about her commitment to women and uplifting women's status in the world. Women and identified as women people. I don't mean to be heteronormative all the time. But I think she could put a lot of money into what it is that we're doing. And, I started writing to the Gates Foundation, God, decades ago, and never got very far. But I just feel like if somebody could get to her, that would make a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, Ellen, this has just been fantastic. Thank you for taking the time. Just like I said, when I had the opportunity to meet you in person last year, and now with this, just really honored to have you a part of this. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm just so, it's just such a pleasure to be with you. You're so easy to be with, and I'm so proud of you. And like I said, you're my dream come true.
Oh, thank you, Ellen. Thank you very much. So to our audience, thank you again for watching this episode of Disrupting the Dominoes of Violence. Remember that. Please, if you enjoyed our podcast, subscribe. Also check us out on our website at payprevention.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. Again, stay safe, and thank you again for watching.